Welcome to the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This week I've got Kevin Gregory in the studio with me. Now, he is the NSCA's Coaching and Sports Science Coordinator. And if you're not familiar with the NSCA, that stands for the National Strength Conditioning Association. Follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder. Click the subscribe button, and here we go.
You know, the majority of the guests that come on Zealous Podcast, obviously the pros in professional sports, a lot of them have certain credentials. And one of them is Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. And that is put out by the National Strength Conditioning Association, if you're unfamiliar with that. But that has become a gold standard amongst performance directors, strength coaches, and the like within the industry as well as professional sports. So why not go directly to the headquarters, go to the source and talk to some folks in the NSCA, and over the course of the next few months, we'll be bringing on more guests like that as we get closer to their annual conference, which is July 12th to the 15th in Las Vegas, Nevada. So this week I bring on Kevin Gregory. Now, Kevin is part of the NSCA, and his role as such is he's responsible for coaching and sports science program coordinating. And so, well, Kevin, welcome on to Zealous.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And so, can you just give us a little idea of what's involved with your role with the NSCA?
Yeah, it's a layered approach. I like you said, I'm the coaching and sports science coordinator, so I work alongside Eric McMahon at the headquarters, and we have a long list of projects we work on from a daily basis. We are supporting coaches. We network with coaches. It's my job. Given a little back history, I've been coaching for 20 years, so I got to a point in my career where I wanted to give back and give back to the community, the coaching community, and we support coaches and we push the coaching profession forward. We do a lot of advocacy projects for the high school space, for the college space, and also the professional space.
So you just had the annual coaches clinic last month. What was involved with that? Not necessarily coordinating and setting it up, but what if somebody were to attend the annual coaches clinic? What are they going to walk away with?
Yeah, so the coaching conference is an opportunity for coaches to get together yearly. We have it in January every year in different cities, and it's a way to give back, to gain some exposure for young coaches. Also, we want to bring in older coaches, veteran coaches that have experience. They can glean insight into their career. And it's also an opportunity to gain CEUs. As you know, for the CSCS certification, you need CEUs that you can attain after every 3 years. And since we're coming up on a certification year this year, 2023, it usually is well attended. And people start coming in and attending those conferences. But it's just a way for coaches to get together, network, build their resume, build their connections within the community, and then also gain some good knowledge and insight into what's happening in our field.
So when you say coaches, in general, are we talking high school, college, and professional? Like, what rankings are we saying?
Yes, so it's high school coaches. In fact, at the coaches conference every year, we're going to have a coaches high school track where each day is a focus. On the second day was a college coaches track, and then the third day was a high school coaches track where we bring in high school coaches from around the country and speak. So it's high school, it's college, and it's also the professional level as well.
And all sports?
All sports, yes. So you can be a football player, football coach. You can be a volleyball coach. It's for all sports. Yes, it's our coaches conference, and it's for coaches. Our national conference that we have in July, that's a little bit more of a research focus. A lot of researchers, sports scientists, but the coaches conference is well attended from coaches that are in the weight room every day, in the high school level, college level, and even within the college, you're looking at, a lot of different levels. There's the Division I, Division II, the junior college level, NAIA. So just different levels. Yeah.
All right. You mentioned you had 20 years of coaching experience. What sports are we talking there?
So yeah, I predominantly football. That was kind of my passion. I played high school football in Texas, and that's where my love for strength and conditioning kind of took off. To this day remember my high school strength coach. He was also the football coach, but he was very influential in my development into my career. And then I also coached, volleyball, baseball, soccer. I was a director of athletic performance when I lived in Santa Barbara, California for a long time. And I worked at a facility called Fuel Sports Performance. And I worked with all sports. So volleyball, basketball, baseball, football, beach volleyball, all kinds of different sports. But predominantly my experience or expertise is in football.
Well, and that kind of runs the course there, because I mean NSCA stemmed from football primarily, right? Yeah. So I'm curious though, there's always these experiences that help to direct the course of our lives, right? These influential individuals, and a lot of times they're mentors and coaches. Do you recall like the event when you were with your strength coach / football coach, where you just had this realization, this is what I want to do? Was there a moment?
Yeah. So you bring up a really interesting point, because in high school, I started playing football, and if you know me, I live with a disability. I have cerebral palsy, and it was a situation where I came into high school and I really wanted to play football. I loved football. I loved the game. My dad played football in college, and I really wanted to participate fully in the strength and conditioning program. Well, obviously with cerebral palsy, there was certain exercises I couldn't do. So like the Olympic lifting, power cleaning, snatch, clean and jerk, I couldn't do those exercises. So I had to find ways to adapt and to develop those strength qualities, that power, expression of power, expression of strength in different ways. So that's where I grew that relationship with the strength and conditioning coach at my high school. And I came to him and I said, hey, coach, as you know, I can't do this exercise. How can I adapt? How can I make this exercise different for my given situation? And that's where the love and the passion and just understanding how to adapt to any situation you're in, because you're not ever going to have the ideal situation. At least I'm not going to have the ideal situation when I walk into a weight room. The minute I walked in the weight room and as a freshman in high school, I had to figure out different ways to do power development, to do plyometrics, to certain activities or certain exercises that are just so common for the general population without a disability. And then we just created a plan, and I followed that plan. And of course, I was with the team in the weight room, so I got to understand the culture building and the camaraderie that goes along with sports in high school. But I always had to adapt. I always had to do different things differently.
So what was your position on the team?
So yeah, I played offensive line, and then I also played linebacker. And with my disability, they had to wrap my hand in a cast. So every day in high school, I'd go to the athletic trainer, which I built an amazing relationship with, because he was with me every day, and he'd wrap my hand in a cast, and I had to play. And it was obviously hard playing linebacker with one hand, because obviously one of my hands I couldn't grab with. But I loved the game so much that it just, at that particular development of my life, I just dove in. I just said, I don't care if I can't wrap up. I'm just going to hit somebody as hard as I can and play the game to the best of my ability. And I love the game so much. And I was fortunate enough to be able to play all 4 years in high school. And my junior year, we won a state championship in Texas, which was a a memory that I'll never forget. And yeah, it was just something that just that's where the love of football grew.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's quite admirable. So, I find it that anytime I meet somebody who has some adaptive challenge, I ask them the questions about it because they they're so much more an expert than I could ever be. But as I know with cerebral palsy, as I understand it, it's one of the most common neurological disorders, shall we say, and it affects balance and stability, and it's hard to improve upon strength to some degree. I mean, just the name cerebral, brain, and palsy, weakness, there's that inherent weakness. Is that, and it sounds like you have a mild version and it can be very severe with others.
Yeah, I mean, just a little backstory. I mean, when I was born, I had 2 minutes after birth, I started having seizures. And then back then, they just literally took me from my mom and put me in a tub of ice to try to get my body temperature down because it was like 102, 103 degrees. So once the body temperature dropped, they gave me back to my mom and said, the seizures are over, the body temperature dropped. We want to do a CAT scan on the brain. So they did a CAT scan, everything seemed normal. But then as I started to develop, started to crawl, they started noticing that my hand was not, I wasn't crawling normally. I was crawling, but I wasn't crawling normally. And my dad being a college football player, he said, my son's gonna be an athlete. I don't care what he has. And I really look back, and that's where it started. He threw me into organized sports, and I played soccer and I played baseball, and I was a pitcher with one hand, and I put the glove on my other hand. And as soon as I released the ball, it's very similar to how Jim Abbott back in the day.
Yeah,
He was
the
kind of my
Angels, yeah.
idol. Yeah, so I just adapted. I mean, I was just in my blood. I just had to I had to figure out how to play sports with my friends. And that's how I just learned how that whole adaptation to training evolves. And yeah, I mean, so then, yeah, I had cerebral palsy, and then I played sports, and then I started to follow football, and that's where the love of football came. And I wasn't going to take no for an answer to play high school football.
So I'm just blown away, Kevin. I mean, first of all, I'm very curious about your strength conditioning program while you were in the high school, because like you said, you weren't doing some of the main fundamental lifts,
yeah.
And you and your coach developed other things. But what was that? I mean, how did you develop the deeper strength to be on the O-line?
Yeah, so we had machines, the hammer strength machine, the jammer machine. We had those old school machines, and I would just manually wrap my hand around the bar. And then I blast it as hard as I can. And sometimes it just wouldn't move, and sometimes it wouldn't. And I would obviously do functional exercises such as push-ups. I could do push-ups as a kid. So I would just do push-ups before bed. Never really could do a pull-up, simply because I just don't ever really have that grip strength in my right hand. So I was constantly trying to work on my pull-ups, and just lower body. I was very fortunate to have some good genes, and I could squat, I could lunge, I could do step ups. So I really developed my lower body. And I think that's where, and I wasn't the tallest guy playing football in high school. I was only 5'9". So I just used leverage and the strength that I had in my legs to really get underneath. I had a really good leverage and pad level playing football, and I used my quickness. I was lucky enough to have lateral movement. I could move laterally, but anything in my hand, I just didn't have that fine motor skill control to just, voluntarily reach out and grab a dumbbell and just do bicep curls or a shoulder press. It was just mostly just for upper body development for my right side. It was just mostly just push-ups, and then just, throwing a med ball as fast as I could, tossing a med ball. I was probably developing a lot of my left side because that was the side that was unaffected. But yeah, I think It goes to that. It goes to some of the research where they say that if you have, an injury, sometimes when you work one side of the body, just neurologically, your body can develop on that injured side. Yeah, I don't have the answer. That's how I just adapted, and I threw a lot of medicine balls, and I just did a lot of push-ups and sit-ups and squats and lunges and step-ups. Those are the exercises I always did.
Fantastic. It sounds as if you really use CP as a driving force.
Yes, I do. And I think that's really what's helped me in my coaching career over the 20 years, is that when I walk into a weight room of athletes and they see my disability, they see what I've overcome. They talk to me, they engage with me, they understand that I understand this stuff, and I understand how to make them better. I think then all of a sudden it just disappears, and they don't see it as much as probably I see it internally. I'm thinking, okay, are they looking at my hand? Are they staring at my body? What are they looking at? But over the course of coaching, and then I get into the actual, I actually get into the weight room and I start coaching. And that's where the love and the passion for what I'm doing just comes out. And I've been very fortunate to stay in contact with a lot of athletes that I've coached, and to this day they say, Kev, we love you. We just love you for who you are and what you did and what you represent. If I have a bad day, I know what you're going through, and it's like I can't come in the weight room and just go half-ass. I can't do that. So I have to give it my all.
I find it kind of I guess coincidental. Yesterday I was having a conversation with a young trainer who has, I'll just say, some limitations, some challenges. And they were kind of concerned about, would people listen? Would somebody just as a trainer, do what I ask them to do, even if I can't demonstrate the movements? And I said, I've considered that. And I think that, hopefully this never happens, but if I were in some type of surfing accident or otherwise that left me in potentially a wheelchair, I wouldn't stop doing what I'm doing, because a coach is not necessarily somebody that can demonstrate everything. A coach is somebody that can get someone else to achieve what it is they're desiring.
Sure.
And so with that, do you find that your ability to coach verbally has improved because of this?
Absolutely. I mean, I see things from such a different perspective. Like I can walk into a weight room and I can see movement. And I think that's where my love of this profession started, because I'm a visual learner. I see things and I see movement. And, there's that saying, if it doesn't look right, it's not right. And, I look at movement and I examine movement, and I've always found ways to communicate. I think communication is key as a coach. You have to be able to communicate your message. And I'll do subtle things in the weight room where I'll position my body facing an athlete where they see my good side, and then I can demonstrate a particular movement. But it's just a simple nuance of just shifting my body, so then they see the left side of my body, and then I'm demonstrating a particular exercise. And as I'm starting to explain little nuances of exercises, it's just building that relationship with athletes and understanding that, hey, I really care about getting you better. I'm actually here in the presence of you, and I'm actually going to just give it my all of explaining my way of explaining a particular exercise. And if you don't understand it, please tell me and I'll find a different way. One funny little story that I have is one of my jobs when I first got to Colorado Springs back in 2019. I started working here in the headquarters as a CSCS exam prep instructor. And of course, we have to go into the weight room and do the practical portion of the test. And there was this attendee who was struggling with the power clean, and we broke them up into groups and we were talking, and I'm explaining to them the steps of the power clean, and then they all get on the floor and the platforms and they start practicing the exercise. Well, this one particular attendee, she was really struggling understanding the power clean, and she was trying it and trying it and trying it, and it wasn't looking good, and she was struggling and she was getting frustrated. And then I just walked up to her really, professionally, and I just said, "Hey, I know I'm throwing a lot at you right now. I'm just going to back it up a little bit. You're just going to focus on 3 things right now." And I told her the 3 things, and then you could tell she was just getting really frustrated. She's like, "I just can't do this. I've never done this." And I leaned into her and said, "Neither have I." And all of a sudden she was like, "Oh my God." And she laughed about it. And then boom, she did it. And I was like, that moment is something that I'll never forget. Is like, here's an opportunity for me to let her know that, hey, she's struggling with this exercise and she's never done it. I'm teaching the exercise and I've never done it. So that was a moment for me that I'll never forget. And sure enough, she came up to me afterwards, like, "Thanks so much for helping me." And she did the exercise as soon as I told her I haven't either, and that was a very powerful moment.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, and I mean, with the backdrop there that you're at the headquarters right now, I mean, that's just every professional's playground.
Yeah.
I can imagine how powerful that was. So, I want to talk a little bit about sports science, and Kev, that term, I don't know if it has truly been defined, because amongst all the guests that I have that are sports scientists, I've gotten a different answer every time I've asked, what is sports science? So I want to hear what your definition is.
Yeah, I mean, sports science it's an area that we're, as a profession, navigating to how we define it. I mean, there's some research articles, really great research articles that have just come out defining the sports scientist. And it's a profession with technology that is only going to grow. And I think that if you're a coach in the profession, you have to find ways to obviously enhance performance. And with technology, it's going to obviously help us navigate the data that comes out on sports science, and it helps us to create a path to find the most efficient, effective way in terms of injury prevention, performance, from a recovery standpoint. So a lot of that data out there needs to be understood, and that's where the sports scientist comes into. Is it helps decipher the data and the technology, using technology to really enhance athletic performance in a safe manner. So, I mean, it's something that we're constantly working on. It's a field that fascinates me just because I love the technology with force plates and with GPS tracking and so forth. It's really interesting from that standpoint to really understand load management, how to use load management. And that's all is encompass of what a sports scientist does. They are one individual within the model of, if you want to call it a high performance model of a team that works together with the physical therapist, with the team doctor, with the strength and conditioning coach. Now you have a entity of a sports science that comes in and they help decipher the plan. And the plan is how to get those athletes to be healthy when it's game time. And that's really the ultimate model, or the ultimate goal of the strength and conditioning, the high performance team, is to make sure your athletes are available when you play.
How is the NSCA positioning itself with sports science to get that expertise, experience, research backed information out toward all levels, whether it be high school, college, or pros?
Yeah, so we have the CPSS certification, which is the Certified Professional Sports Scientist certification that we just rolled out, and it's a higher level certification that you have to have in order to gain a position in the strength and conditioning field of a director of sports scientist or a sports scientist coordinator, whatever the job description is out there. And that's, again, one of our responsibilities, is to help create that model of what is a director of sports science, what is a sports scientist coordinator. So yeah, I mean, it's an ever evolving field, and it's something that we're excited about with the CPSS certification that just came out, and it's gonna require a lot of professional sports teams, college universities to help create that position, because it's only going to enhance the strength and conditioning department within that school sports team.
So you see the CPSS being to sports science what the CSCS certification is for strength and conditioning?
Yes, it's gonna head that direction, and I think it's a great way of establishing some standards and some guidelines of what a sports scientist should understand and do on a daily basis. And I'm excited for the future of the program. It's just a matter now of just getting it out there and getting people to get excited about the certification and grow it. And that's one of our responsibilities here at the NSCA, is to just grow that certification and get it globally. I mean, if you think about the way sports science is in Europe versus United States is more of a strength and conditioning model. And then more in Europe, it's more of a sports scientist model. So now it's just a matter of just merging the two. European sports scientists they're a sports scientist at a school or a university, whereas here we have more of a strength and conditioning job model. And now it's a matter of just merging the two together.
So what are the basic requirements for taking the CPSS exam?
Yeah, so you have to have there's a criteria that you go through. You have to have a certain degree, a credential degree in a health related field. And then you have to have some practical experience as well. You have to have your CSCS, obviously, that's kind of a precursor. And you have to have practical experience within the field, and you have to have, obviously, a scientific background, solid scientific background in the field, and actively coaching, practicing sports science.
I got it. Okay, so within that framework, do you have to have certain technologies and equipment that you're familiar with, such as force plate technology, whether it be wearable tech? Are there certain elements within this scope that somebody needs to have?
I mean, I think it helps. Obviously, I think it helps if you have that practical experience. If you don't have practical experience, I would highly recommend that you find ways to get some experience in that, understand the technology, because it's only gonna help you with that test. There's sections of the test where you have to dive into some statistics of data, and you have to understand what the data is telling you, and you have to be able to decipher what is usable data and what isn't. So yeah, I mean, having experience with that technology is obviously going to be a benefit. If you don't have it, it's obviously going to be a little bit more of an added challenge, but I think it's something that you could definitely overcome if you purchase the textbook that we offer and really dive into the textbook.
So do you gather with European colleagues, and for that matter, I mean, NSCA Japan, the conference is going on right now, I believe, or somewhere close to when we're recording this. Do you in your position, reach out to colleagues internationally to try and create a better sports science model that is not solely strength conditioning centric?
Yeah, I don't personally do that. Eric McMahon went over to Spain last year, and he worked with their association out over there in Europe, and they're working on working on a model to create a more understanding of what our model is, and we want to understand what their model is, and merge the two together. So I mean, it's in its infancy stages, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's just the emergence of sports science is, you're starting to see it now in professional sports. Teams are hiring directors of sports science, coordinators, and so forth. In Europe, it's a little bit further along. So yeah, we have somebody in the NSCA that is in charge of NSCA International. And then Eric also is working alongside sports scientists in Europe to bring that to understand that model and to bring it to light.
What about in the world of academia? Like on the college campuses, are there any vanguards in the field of sports science? Like I think of Springfield College when it comes to strength conditioning, and before that it was Eastern Appalachian State, University of Nebraska. Where are the hotbeds on college campuses for sports science these days?
Yeah, so some programs that since I've been in the NSCA, and I just started July of last year. Some of the schools that we're working with currently right now, or that we know of, we have an intern currently. We have an intern program here at the NSCA. We have a virtual internship, and our current intern is in Penn State. And they have a pretty nice program there, developing their sports science program. And then also University of Pittsburgh has a program it's getting a lot of attention. But a lot of the programs are just starting out with sports science, and like I said, it's fairly new. Getting a degree in sports science, like I just mentioned, is not as prevalent in the United States yet, but it will start having more of a presence in the area. Yeah.
Right on. Well, I'm looking forward to the emergence of more information and just technology giving us quite a bit, almost sometimes, I think, too much information, feeding through the streams and streams of data. How is that? I mean, being coaching and sports science coordinator, do you deal with that, like the abundance of data collection? And if so, how do you sort through it?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to have a plan of what data you want to use and what data is going to be beneficial to your program. And then, hopefully you have a situation where you have, a sports science program or someone that's in charge of that, and then they can sit down and I think the challenge with sports science these days is you have a sports scientist in your program, and they come into the meeting room with the strength and conditioning coaches, and how does that sports scientist speak coaching talk, and how does that coach understand what that sports scientist is telling them in terms of what the data is saying. So I think that's where the silver lining is in this profession, is being able to have sports scientists that have that degree and that have that background come into a room and be able to sit down with the strength and conditioning coach and say, this is what the data is telling us, and this is what I suggest that you do. And then it's also important for the sports scientist to understand the demands and the pressures of what the strength and conditioning coach has in their job. Because as you know, in sports, it's a lot of times it's about wins and losses. So if you have a strength and conditioning staff that is taking in the information from the sports scientist and then they're merging it together, it could be a pretty interesting conversation. It could be a very volatile conversation at times. So I think it's paramount that the sports scientist can speak the coaches talk, but then also the coaches can understand where the sports scientist is coming from. And that's why I think it's so important that the two of them merge together, because if they can understand one another and understand how one can help the other, I think that's going to be the key. Because I know a lot of strength coaches that are more veteran strength coaches that weren't around during the technology coming out.
We won't call them dinosaurs, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I call them veteran strength coaches, because
there you go.
They've been in the field. They've established their reputation. They're some great coaches out there. And then when you have a young sports scientist that comes in and says, we need to change this, we need to change that, and the sports scientist might not understand where the strength coach is coming from, and then the sports scientist needs to understand that. And I think that's where the communication needs to be very clear and concise, and it needs to be clear. So,
but you mentioned you've got an internship program. What's involved with that?
So we have a virtual internship at the NSCA where we have a intern every semester, and we work on projects that we're working on. And we have this particular semester, we have an intern from Penn State, like I mentioned, and she is helping us with projects that we have. And some of the projects that we have are where we're working on revamping our website a little bit. And we're also going to be working on some pages within our website. Like we have a Strength of America page that we have where we highlight strength and conditioning programs around the country in the high school space. So we're really revamping on that, and we're working on some resources for high school coaches. That's kind of my wheelhouse in terms of projects that I'm working on, is to try to establish a stronger connection to who our coaches are in the high school space. And then we also work on some college resource pages for college coaches. And then within the NSCA, we have professional development groups, we have special interest groups, and we're working on initiatives and tasks to help, push those groups forward, and the interns, get kind of a taste of what our strength or sports science program is, and evolving that and developing that and creating that, and then also supporting the coaches as well. So they have a lot of different projects they work on.
Yeah, I'd say so. I would definitely say so. And I find it probably more challenging, you can tell me this, or whether it's true or not, to work with high school coaches compared to college or easily professional, because some of them are on a volunteer basis. Some of them are teachers at the high school that they just needed a space filled, and they were kind of thrown into that position. I mean, so you've got a wide array of coaches in terms of their experience and knowledge. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, the high school space is a challenging space to work in the sense that there's not a standard procedure to get in. Every state has different licensure requirements, state requirements to become a teacher. Some coaches are, like you said, under contract. Some coaches are full-time. Some coaches are PE teachers / strength coaches. So there's a lot of different pathways to becoming a high school coach. And my first job out of college was a high school strength coach in Santa Barbara, and I was under contract where the head football coach brought me on. And then after 2 years, after the second year, he finally had some money to pay me. So that was kind of a weird situation that I experienced. And then there's some coaches that are PE teachers that have a licensure and they're a full-time fledged strength and conditioning coach. And that's our goal here at the NSCA, is to have a full-time CSCS in every high school. Having that be a goal, there's obviously challenges and roadblocks, such as different states have different requirements. And also, some teachers are under contract, they're part-time, they do the morning group, and then they have an after school group. And then there's some job models out there that are it's a full-time, full-fledged strength and conditioning coach training the entire school? Or are you just training just the athletes? So there's a lot of different versions of what a strength coach is in the high school space. And that's something that we're working on here at the NSCA to help navigate that community, because it is all over the place in a sense. And some high schools don't even have a strength and conditioning program.
True.
And those are the programs that we really want to help assist and grow.
Well, other than the coaches conference that occurs every January in different locations around the country, what resources, let's just say I'm a high school coach slash strength coach because my budget's low, and what kind of resources does the NSCA have, whether it's on the website or virtually or otherwise, material and so on, that would benefit me as that coach and strength coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have regional and state clinics. So every region, every state has a state clinic, and you can go to the website and click on connect locally up in the website, and then you can find what region you live in, and then you can click on that, and it gives you a list of when we have regional and state clinics throughout the year. We will be having many more clinics this year, simply because it is a research year. So a lot of coaches are out trying to get their CEUs by the end of December of this year. So that's would be my first recommendation, is to reach out to a state and local liaison. We're working on creating a list of coaches that are high school coaches that are in each state. So if you were a high school strength coach in California or a high school strength coach in Texas, we would have a liaison to reach out to, and then they would give you information on how to get more involved, to volunteer, to attend clinics, to attend conferences. Like you mentioned, we have the coaches and the national every year, but we have local and regional clinics throughout the year in different regions of the United States.
Any kind of mentoring programs also?
Yes, we do have some mentoring programs. Again, it's all on the website, and it's a way to. We have the RSCC program, which is a program for registered strength and conditioning coaches, and it's not a certification; it's more of a distinction, a recognition of coaches that are actually coaching in the field. Because as you know, you could have the CSCS certification and not be actively coaching or practicing strength and conditioning. So the RSCC is a process where coaches can get recognized for their years in the strength and conditioning profession, actually coaching full-time teams. So within that mentorship program of the RSCC, people can request that they work or have a mentor that is an RSCC, that is in the field. Either it's a college strength coach, high school strength coach, or even a professional strength coach that's within the RSCC program.
Well, that sure is a whole bunch of support. And NSCA.com, I will put the link in below with the description of the podcast. So for those listening, want to find more information about that. But what about yourself, Kevin? If people want to learn more about you or contact you with questions, is that okay? Where can they go?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Coach Gregory Strength, and then Twitter. I'm on Twitter, SB Strength Coach. And then those are the two platforms. I'm also on Facebook. You can just look me up, Kevin Gregory, and I'm on Facebook as well. So those are the three platforms I'm using.
Last question. Yeah. I was back in Colorado Springs at the headquarters last June, and it's a gorgeous area. What was it like moving there? Because it's been only a couple of years since you moved there, correct?
Yeah, it's I told my wife when we left Santa Barbara back in 2019 that Colorado would be the only place that I would move to, simply because I am an avid skier, and I want to be, the close proximity to the mountains, and it's a beautiful place. My wife and I do love it here. It's a great city. Colorado Springs it's Olympic City, USA. So the Olympic training center is here. Colorado College is a great small school here in Colorado Springs and then the Air Force Academy is here. So it's an awesome place, very active. It reminds me a lot of Santa Barbara, in the sense that everybody is just into health, into activities. Even when it's snowing outside, you see people walking around the neighborhood bundled up in their beanies and their jackets. So it's a very active city, and it's growing rapidly, and we love it out here. It's a great city.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, and hopefully I'll make my way back there, and we'll have lunch or something, maybe a workout. Who knows?
Yeah, let me know when you come into town.
You got it. Thanks for being on. I've really appreciated your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rocky. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Zealous Podcast. I want to thank Kevin for coming on. And if you're interested in learning more about the Coaches Conference, be sure to check the description below this podcast. And don't pass up the opportunity to go to the annual conference, either in person or online, in Las Vegas, Nevada, this July 12th to the 15th. I will be there with a whole bunch of my other guests on these podcasts, and you get to learn from the best. We'll see you there.